What's going on, you guys? I want to talk about some more stuff, some more cannabis/hemp education, a little bit of kind of knowledge that I didn't even know about that I wanted to share with you guys. Hemp/cannabis concentrates or extractions and how they come to fruition, basically how extractions are done, specific extractions. This time we're talking about BHO or basically hydrocarbon extractions, solvent extractions, things like butane, propane, etc. So things that have been on the market for quite a while, things like shatter, batter and butter, crumble, things like that. Things that most of you are probably familiar with by now. I'm going to go into some of the key details on how the extraction process is done, the chemical processes, and and what it's like when it's all said and done. Kind of go into detail on how their physical appearance came to be, and I can show you guys some details on those specifically firsthand. So let's do it. So in order to do a batter/butter extraction, it's going to be typically done by a closed loop extraction via a hydrocarbon or solvent. So how they're going to do this is they have a couple of different tanks within this closed loop extraction. One is the collection chamber, and then the other is the solvent chamber. So what they're going to do is they're going to put all of the plant material into the collection chamber, and they're going to introduce a solvent. So let's just say in this instance, the example is butane. So we're putting our flour into the collection chamber, putting our butane into the collection chamber, and what happens with the solvent in there is it starts to strip away the unnecessary plant material from the hemp/cannabis, so things like the essential oils, just the things that we don't want to smoke. And it's left over, all that's left over after the fact is the terpenes and the cannabinoids, the good stuff. So after the fact, you have leftover solvents. So you can't smoke that. So what you have to do is you've got to separate it. So a lot of times what they call in this method is called a purging. In this instance, what you're going to do is you're going to separate the collection chamber and the solvent chamber. You're going to put your collection chamber in hot water. You put your solvent chamber in ice water or dry ice. And essentially what this is going to do is it's going to make it so that there's a temperature differential, and it makes it so the solvent is going to start evaporating into the solvent chamber, and it makes it so that eventually over time all of your solvent gets purged out, evaporated out, and you're left with nothing but your concentrate, your extraction there, and that's what we want.
Awesome.
So that's a closed loop extraction, and what makes it a closed loop is so after you're done purging all of the butane out, you're actually able to reuse that again for your next extraction. So it's all been collected in that solvent chamber. So that is essentially closed loop extraction in a nutshell. It's a little bit more complicated than that. I did leave some stuff out. And again, that is more or less how you're going to have a batter consistency. Moving right along, the most common concentrate, I think, for a long time was shatter. Shatter is like some people call it snap and pull. It's like kind of like a glassy shatter consistency. You pull it apart and it snaps and it breaks, and that's why people call it that. And the reason why I'm talking about it is because it's pretty similar to the extraction method that was just mentioned, the batter/butter extraction method. For the closed loop extraction, it is also going to be done via a hydrocarbon, so butane, propane, etc. And typically this is going to be done with lower end flower. Typically it's going to be done with like trim or smalls, buds. Can sometimes be done with higher end flower for the extraction, but typically it's going to be trim for shatter. And typically for it to get that shatter consistency, it's going to be during the post-processing. So you're going to have all the extraction go pretty much the exact same as the batter and butter up until that point. So once it's done, you let it sit for a while, and eventually it starts to harden and it turns into that shatter consistency. Moving right along to crumble. Crumble is the one who's probably done the most differently from all of these that were mentioned before. The ones that were mentioned beforehand it doesn't really matter if it's done with a warmer temperature or not. With crumble, it has to be flash frozen, it has to be fresh flour, and it has to be frozen in order to retain that terpene profile and to get that consistency. Some of the trade-off for the crumble, however, is that it is a little harder to work with. However, you are getting more of those terpenes typically retaining from the frozen, from the cold extraction method. So the fact that they're using the fresh frozen plant material for extraction, typically you're gonna end up with more of a taste, more terpene profile with crumble. So those are some of the key highlights that I wanted to go over with you for those 3 extraction methods slash concentrates. And yeah, we'll just kind of go over a little bit of the physical attributes that these have so that you guys have a little bit more of an understanding as to what I'm talking about. I'll show you the consistency that this batter has. As you can see, it's really buttery and it comes out like butter as well. You can kind of see it's got that sugary kind of consistency to it, but it's more like a wax, you know, it's not like a dry, it's just more wet, for instance, and that's why we call it batter. And this is our crumble that we've got currently on hand. And this is a jungle GMO, and as you can see, it's got that dry, brittle kind of consistency to it, but it smells really great. You guys will know what I'm talking about if you guys were here with me. So that's about it, everybody. Thank you guys for taking time to sit here and listen. And if you guys have anything to share about concentrates, any experience that you might have with them, maybe you want to talk a little bit outside of solvent-based concentrates, you want to share your experience with solventless-based concentrates like rosin or hash, I'd love to hear about that. I'll probably do a video on that as well. Thank you guys for hanging out with me for a little bit. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.